Alright, so apologies for the voice, I'm just getting over a cold and this is just after a 9-hour stream, but the video had to be made now because Square has finally released their new port of the Final Fantasy VII Steam version that they teased about a month ago. This is just going to be a very quick, down and dirty explanation on the differences between the new version and the old version and what this version actually is. So for starters, what is this even all about? Well, on January 29th, Square Enix came out of the blue and said that they were replacing the version of Final Fantasy VII we've all been playing on Steam since 2013 with a brand new version. They didn't really say much about this other than the fact that the original version would be delisted but still available to play to anyone that owned it. Anyone that owned it would get the new version for free, and that saves from the original version would not work on the new version. Other than this, we really didn't know much, but most of us in the community figured that it was probably just the PS4, PS5 version ported over to Steam. This wouldn't really come with any big improvements other than the boosters like the ×3 and the God mode cheats. This would also mean that warping would be fixed on this version, which would affect the speed run, but we'll talk about that later. In general, it seemed like it would be a net positive. We were getting a new version, but the old version would still be available, and this new version would be pretty much the same other than getting the boosters. The idea behind this was probably just to have all of the modern versions of Final Fantasy VII the same, whether or not you're playing on PS5, the Switch, or the PC. Me personally, I don't really see the need for this, but as a business, it makes sense that you want all the experiences to be the same leading up to the third part of the remake. So on February 24th, today, they finally replaced the original version with the new version, delisting the old version. This means you can still play the original version if it is on your Steam account, but if it is not on your Steam account, you can no longer purchase it from the store. As I said before, in terms of the casual experience, there really shouldn't be any issue with this as long as the new version is pretty much the same as the old version. Unfortunately, that is not the case. This version comes with a lot of positives and negatives, which is an issue given that the original is no longer available for purchase. You are only able to buy this one regardless of whether or not you think the positives outweigh the negatives. I should also mention that they released this new version on GOG, which, regardless of your opinion on GOG, it is nice to have it in multiple places. Now, I would say if you're a casual player of Final Fantasy VII, somebody that just plays the game every once in a while, or maybe you haven't played the game since the PS1 version, then this version is totally fine. You're not going to run into any massive problems other than one thing that I believe is going to be fixed very soon. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you are somebody that plays the Steam version of Final Fantasy VII quite often, this is going to feel like a huge downgrade, which is very frustrating because there was no reason to replace this version in the first place unless it was just better in every way. But having said that, you can still play the original because it's on your account. The only issue here is new Steam accounts, which will be forced to buy this new version. I've said before that if you're going to remaster a game, it really needs to be better in every way, otherwise it just feels like a money grab. And here, it's not even a remaster, it's just another port of the game, and it's worse in so many ways that it is really frustrating that this had to happen. If they were going to delist the version that we've been playing since 2013, this new version really had to be better in every single way. And unfortunately, they completely missed the mark on that. Alright, so that was just the quick recap. I'm now going to go through every single difference we could find in this new version. First of all, the game didn't even work when they first uploaded it to the store. From what I understand, there was about an hour range where the new game was up but not working and the old game was already delisted, giving new players no way to purchase a working version of Final Fantasy VII. Here's the 2013 version. Here's all the files. Everything's in order. Here's the new Steam edition. Oh, no files. It just makes a folder on your computer. Fortunately, this was fixed pretty quickly. Now let's talk about all the good changes to this new version. First of all, the game no longer unfocuses when you click off of the window. Even though this is usually a setting that you would like to be able to turn on or off depending on your preference, it is really nice for games like Final Fantasy VII, which have a bit of downtime since it's a turn-based RPG. As mentioned before, the PlayStation boosters are now in this version, very easily accessible with the F1, F2, and F3 keys, or the sticks on the PlayStation controller, just like on PlayStation. You may be wondering why upload an entire new version of Final Fantasy VII and delist the old version just to add these boosters, But to be completely honest with you, I have heard a good amount of people online talk about how they really only want to play these old RPGs if they have a times 3 mode. To me, that seems pretty silly. I think if you can only play Final Fantasy VII if it's moving at 3 times speed, then maybe turn-based RPGs just aren't your thing. But honestly, I could see how Square Enix would look at that and decide that they needed to upload a version of the game with boosters to make sure that the most amount of people can enjoy Final Fantasy VII ahead of Part 3 of the remake. And to be fair, there have been other games in the series that have really benefited from boosters like Final Fantasy XII. Of course, Zodiac Age also had many other improvements, not just adding the boosters, but I digress. To me, it seems silly to go through all this hassle just to add boosters to the game, especially since they already exist on the PlayStation and Switch versions. But looking at discussions online, I do think that there will be some people that will play this version and enjoy the boosters. And that's all that really matters. This new version of the game does not need a Square account for the launcher, which is a huge issue that a lot of people had with the original game. I never had this issue. I think I logged into my old Square Enix account the first time I ever launched the game, and ever since then it's worked fine. But I've heard other people have issues with the Square Enix thing, and some people even refunded the game because they couldn't get their Square Enix account to work. So this is definitely a big upgrade. There's no reason why you should have to log into your Square account to play Final Fantasy VII on Steam. Full stop, period. It doesn't even do anything to improve the experience. There's no online Chocobo Racing leaderboards or anything, and save files are easily backupable because they're just simple files in your documents folder. And speaking of saves, remember how Square Enix specifically said that your saves would not be transferable from the old version to the new version? So that was a lie. The only thing you have to do is find your hidden app data folder, which is easily accessible on Windows by just showing hidden folders. Go into Local, go into Final Fantasy VII Steam Edition, click the folder with all the numbers, and there they are. There's your saves, just move them over from the previous version. You can use Black Chocobo even to edit them. They are the same exact file extension, they work exactly the same, they are just located in a different spot. Another issue with the original Final Fantasy VII Steam port that I've seen brought up on forums is the lack of native controller support. This version does have native controller support and it works fantastic. I never had any issues using controllers on the original Steam version, especially after Steam Input was implemented, but honestly this is a great change. You plug in a controller and it just works perfectly every time instantly. It's really nice. And the game itself has customization options in the game. You don't have to mess with Steam at all. The only complaint I have about this is you can't change the keys for the boosters. It's always F1, F2, and F3, and on controller it's always the sticks, which is always annoying to me because I like to click the sticks while I'm battling, which turns on the boosters. Another nice change in this new version is that they actually split the languages into their own folders, making it much easier to play the game in other languages and mod the game in other languages. This did, however, double the size of the game, as they had to make a specific F-level file for each language, which is the file that has all the text and field stuff. And yes, this means they made a redundant file for pretty much every single field file in the game, just to have the text be in a different language. Modern game design, ladies and gentlemen. The game can now run in full screen borderless, which is honestly really nice. I really wish the original version had that. The fields also seem to run at a more stable frame rate. They run at actually close to 30-31 FPS. The old version would potentially run all the way up to 36 FPS depending on your CPU or graphics card, and there was very little you could do to fix this other than running an external program. Fortunately, the game running at a slightly higher FPS didn't really affect much other than the speedrun. When you select Quit in the menu in this version, it doesn't kick you all the way back to the launcher, which is a really nice feature. There is also a very frustrating bug on the original Steam version where if you mess with your save files at all and relaunch Steam, it will a lot of times remove the save files from your game. This seems to be completely fixed on the new version, most likely due to the new location of the save files. And finally, and maybe the best improvement of this new version, there is no longer a double directional input when you press a face button shortly after hitting a directional button. This was by far the most annoying thing about the original Steam version. Anytime you would try to select something in the menu quickly, it would end up selecting something a space past where you wanted to select because it would input the directional input twice. Even casually, if you're someone that likes to click through your menus fast, you will notice this all the time on the original Steam version. Now that was the good. Let's talk about the bad. The most obvious and frustrating issue with this new version is the filtering. The entire game has been put under a bilinear filter, causing everything to look more blurry. This is a very common thing in ports of old games, but the original Steam version did not have this, so if you've played the original Steam version and then you switch to this version, everything will be noticeably more blurry. The idea with the filtering is that these old PS1 games, when you take them from such a low resolution and bump up the resolution so high, you see a lot of the imperfections with a lot of the models and a lot of the jagged edges. The filtering is meant to smooth all of those out and kind of give the effect of playing the game on an old CRT TV, where we couldn't see all these imperfections. In my opinion, bilinear filtering can look nice in games that were trying to look more realistic, but couldn't necessarily hit that mark because of the technology at the time. But Final Fantasy VII already looks blocky. It would be like trying to put a bilinear filter over Minecraft. Like they're supposed to look blocky, and now they just look muddy and gross. This filtering is also not done with any type of precision. The entire game just has this filter slapped onto it. Cutscenes, filter. Fields, filter. Battle, filter. Menus, filter. The cursor, filter. Why you would put a filter on a cursor when the entire purpose of a cursor is to stand out and not blend in is completely beyond my understanding. And even with the filtering, there's certain things in the game that just have these awful black jagged edges that I'm not sure why they look so much worse in this version. As I mentioned before, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII in a while, or maybe you've only ever seen the PS1 version, this will look fine. But if you've ever even touched the original Steam version, you will most likely notice it. The other glaring issue with this version is that on the Steam version, not the GOG version, there is a bug that forces the battles into 30 FPS instead of 15. This causes the battles to basically run at 2x speed and makes the entire game basically unplayable to a casual player. I mean, look at the sweeper. It looks like it's malfunctioning. Fortunately, Square Enix already knows about this bug, and I am pretty certain they are going to fix it, hopefully soon. And I need to reiterate, there was already a version of this game that worked fine. So to wake up one day and have the version that we've all played since 2013 be delisted, and the only version that new people can play now is a version that is basically unplayable to a casual audience, is really frustrating and disappointing. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is some kind of bug with the Steam version specifically. Given that this doesn't happen on GOG, that makes sense. So maybe when they uploaded the game to Steam, just something was implemented they didn't realize and it caused this bug. The next issue is that a lot of the sounds in the game are messed up. In general, any sound that plays at a very fast pace will play at a slower pace instead. The sound will still play correctly, but it won't repeat as quickly as it's supposed to, causing stuff like this. Oh no. Or this. That is awful. Ready for the gill? I said before that the GOG version doesn't have the 30 FPS battle issue, but funnily enough, it has its own specific issue, and that would be that the cutscenes seem to lag horribly. Hopefully, this is something fixed relatively soon. The last issue is just a speedrunning thing, but because this version is based on the PS4 version, this version has certain memory glitches fixed, including warping and materia smuggling. It's not known why these specific glitches were fixed in only the console versions, but since this is based on those versions, they're now also fixed on this version. This means that the Final Fantasy VII PC speedrun, the one that has all of the crazy warping and glitching and beats the game in an hour and a half and has had a huge legacy and history over the last couple of years, is now only available on the delisted version of the game. Now, of course, everyone running the game right now can just continue to run the game on the delisted version, but it will be a struggle to keep this run alive, given that now people can only purchase a version of the game where this route is impossible. We also don't know where this new version is going to sit in terms of speedrunning, because the route would be just the same as the console versions, but it will probably run slightly faster due to being on PC. Now, the PC version of the game already has to run an external program in order to be competitive, so we're not asking too much to also have to run on the delisted version of the game. In fact, many games run on old delisted patches of games, and those communities find ways to make it work. But I am worried that over the years, this version of the speedrun will kind of fade into obscurity, and I would hate to see that because it's such a unique and awesome version of the run. And yes, I am biased because that's the version that I run. Now, to top this all off, there are a couple small things that weren't really good or bad that I want to mention. The battle swirl before battles is now slowed down to its original speed on the PS1 version instead of the crazy sped up version that we had in the 2013 Steam release. The launcher of the game uses Final Fantasy VIII sound effects for some reason. There's also a completely unnecessary splash screen at the start of the game that you have to get through before getting to the regular menu. And finally, there is now a dedicated map button. There is a button you can press to bring up the map on the world map that can be a completely separate key for some reason. So pretty much just as I mentioned before, if they fix the crazy 30 FPS battle issue on the Steam version and they fix the laggy cutscenes on the GOG version, then I think this version is fine for most people just wanting to play through Final Fantasy VII again who haven't played through it in a while. But for those of us that play Final Fantasy VII on Steam all the time, whether it be just playing the game normally or maybe speedrunning the game or maybe playing or creating mods for the game, this version presents a lot of issues. The mod community is already hard at work, both fixing this version of the game and also bringing all of the old mods from the Steam version over to this new version, so that's great. And it seems like the way that the files work on this new version, it shouldn't be difficult for them to bring over the old mods relatively quickly. But it is frustrating that more care wasn't put into this version, given that they were planning on delisting the old version from the start. I mean, the game didn't even function when they first uploaded it to the store, and now there's a game-breaking bug on both of the new versions. I think the two big issues, the cutscene lag and the 30 FPS battles, are going to be fixed relatively soon, but all the smaller stuff like the really bad audio issues, I don't think that's ever going to get fixed. At any rate, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I just wanted to make this as quick as possible so that you knew what was going on. If you own the original Steam version, this version is free, so go ahead and try it out. If you don't own any version of Final Fantasy VII on PC, it's on sale right now on GOG for like $5, but the new Steam version is like $12. Thank you for watching. Here's my Patreon if you want to support me. Here's my big Patreon people. Have a good day. And look at that, just as I'm finishing up the video, they fixed the 30 FPS bug on the Steam version. So at least we now have one version that I can recommend to those that are looking to buy the game that is completely functional. If you think that the positives I talked about in this video outweigh the negatives, give it a shot.